Good evening, everybody. I'm so sorry. I did a video earlier, and that video is not showing up. I don't know why. Um, it's actually showing in my recent files, but I don't know. I don't know if somebody is getting access to it. I don't know, but I'm going to do that video over. So in this video, I talk about why I made the decision to pick a side in the Israeli-Palestine conflict. And it wasn't an easy decision. And before I actually go into detail about that, I want to first say that war is never okay on both sides. I am an advocate for the children. I believe in humanitarian peace. I believe that children have the right to life. They have the right to go to school and to live in dignity, be their best selves. And I think that war takes that away from children. And so as an anti-war activist, I am never going to say that war is okay, no matter who is perpetuating the war. But what I will say is that I had a lot of time to think about this conflict, and I had a lot of time to think about communities involved, and I did make a decision. It wasn't an easy one, but before we get into that, I want to urge you to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. I think that these videos are important because what they do is they push videos up in the algorithm. They tell the algorithm that these videos are important. And if these videos are really not pushed up in the algorithm, that doesn't mean that the video is not important. It just means that they're not visible to the algorithm yet. So again, there is a possibility that that video that can't be found will be spliced and diced and circulated for people to attack me and to give me more hate. And that's really unfortunate that that's the choice that's being made. Instead of actually sitting down and having a conversation and talking about peace and talking about these issues like adults, they're choosing to engage in conflict. They're choosing to further division. They're being very divisive. They are choosing to, and I'm talking about the people that are engaged in the cyber espionage. They're choosing to stoke hate and fear. And so I want to really go into why I made my decision. So in the video that I just recorded but somehow is missing from the desktop, I stated that I had a very long discussion with a classmate. It was on Thursday, and my classmate is a pro-Palestinian supporter. She is very knowledgeable, she's very intelligent, and she has a lot of knowledge between the conflict between Israel and Palestine, and she is a beacon of light when she's talking about these issues. She's very passionate about these issues. I have a lot of respect for her. And she discussed these topics in a way that really made me understand more than I knew before. And I have to be honest, on the Israel and Palestine conflict, there's a lot of ignorance for me around this because I feel like I'm not really well educated on it. And as I stated in that video, I made a conscious decision to remain ignorant because I didn't want to have to choose a side. You know, I am devastated about all the losses on both sides, and I can't imagine if one day I woke up that was happening here in Belfast or in the United States is never something that I ever want to happen. And so again, to reiterate that war is never okay. I don't agree with war whatsoever. And I will never get on board with it. So moving on to, or building on that conversation that we had, so she really informed my, I guess, broadened my view about the conflict and what was going on. So I'm going to actually, I was going to do it in a chronological order, but I decided I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to go from the conversation that I had with my classmate backwards. And so after I had that conversation, I had some time to reflect, and I reflected on just the energy of what I've experienced in the Republic of Ireland, in Belfast, with the Islamic community. And I'm not saying that everyone in the Islamic community, that what I've experienced that I'll be talking about in this video is a representative of how everyone in the Islamic community has treated me. I'm not saying that. When I tried to build solidarity, and what I mean by solidarity is when I tried to reach out to groups in Belfast, groups in the Republic of Ireland about being victimized. None of these groups supported me because of the research that I did about some behaviors that I was witnessing in direct provision, which was morality policing. And I was being judged off of probably that history, that paper that I published in the Jurist, in that research that I did, which was, I felt like it was in good faith. I felt like it was in as a human rights defender, in reflection of the community, in support of women, in support of non-binary people, in support of the LGBTQ community. But of course, the LGBTQ community didn't see it that way in the Republic of Ireland, and a lot of these NGOs didn't see it that way. And so you can't really win for losing, right? And so considering that, and considering how there has been a very toxic authority figure that is at the very top, that has been making an attempt to isolate me from really moving on with my life, building connections, loving people, being at home with people, you know, participating in some of the things that we all want to do, such as being a part of a society or being a part of a club. Taking into consideration that, and understanding that there was a conversation that I had where there was a person who said that Americans, that all we want to do, or so how did they put it? Let me not paraphrase. I think that the way, or I'll paraphrase, but not in a way that I'm taking what they said out of context. And what they said was, what Americans, their view of Americans is that what we're trying to do, their view of Americans is that Americans seem to come abroad and engage in research and to say that people want to, or to say that we know better. And I think that that's just really painting Americans with a broad brush. I don't think that that's what we do, or how we think. I think that it's a broad brush to paint American citizens that way, because American citizens are not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm not saying that I'm coming over here to the Republic of Ireland or to Belfast and saying that I know more. If I felt that way, I would have never, ever enrolled in an international program where I'm learning about human rights. I decided to actually take this human rights program because I felt like I didn't know enough about it. I didn't know enough about human rights, and I felt I always want my viewpoint to be broadened, and I want to take in more information, and I want to learn from more people. And so here at Queen's University, like I'm very privileged to be attending Queen's University and learning from some of the most informed educators, uh, Dr. Gift, Dr. Brunger, um, Dr. Diver, among others, Dr. Nayat. He has a difficult name to pronounce. I told him, Dr. Nayat. Sorry, doctor, I'm pronouncing your name wrong. But he is in my transitional justice class. He's American, but I told him it's a difficult name for me to pronounce. But I'm very privileged to be learning from them because they have really broadened my horizons. Dr. Jimenez, I enjoy her a lot. And so, like, I love all of my professors here. Like, I feel gifted that I'm able to learn under their tutelage and that they've actually are sharing what they know with me. And so, no, I don't believe that Americans are, American students are coming here to say like, oh, we know it all and we need to be, in charge and tell people what to do. No, like I'm having a seat in a classroom. Not that this isn't a classroom, but I'm talking about having a seat in my real classrooms. And I'm learning from people who know more than me. And I love that. And so understanding that viewpoint, that perspective, and then learning about what I've been through. So again, I tried to build community with people in direct provision, tried to really have strong relationships with people in direct provision, and those relationships failed, unfortunately. And so why was that? I don't think it was mostly on me. So for example, there was a Pakistani woman who she was in a relationship with a man and they were going through a difficult time. They were separated, and I really cared for her as a friend, a platonic friend who was going through a difficult time in her relationship. And I did everything that I could to really help her out of that relationship, see her best self, to see her, to grow into herself, if that was what she wanted to do outside of this relationship. And when I saw her, she was always heartbroken and, upset, crying. And I was like, you really don't need this man to validate you. You are validated yourself. And whether or not that relationship, whether or not they was really going through a conflict, I don't know. The jury is still out on that, because after everything happened with this entire morality policing issue and understanding that she was possibly a part of it, what I did was, I noticed that they were able to get back together like at the snap, and as if they never had any problems. So again, it raises the question as to whether, like, who put them up to what they did to me. And again, to reiterate, I was trying to really build some very strong bonds in the Republic of Ireland and the direct provision institution. And nobody gave me a chance. Nobody didn't say, you know what, let's sit down and let's have a conversation with Kiana. Let's hear her viewpoint and let's try and work things out. No, the conversations that we were actually, if I did have a conversation, it was actually to siphon information out of me. It wasn't like, okay, we're having a conversation because we really do care about her perspective in solving this conflict. And so taking that into consideration, taking into consideration that how everybody piled up on me in this entire, on this entire issue, or excuse me, on this specific issue, which is still happening. Like, nobody is saying, you know what, Kiana, we want to understand what you're going through. We want to understand, like, how did this occur? Why did this happen? No, people are still ostracizing me, you know, shaming me, if not talking to me, because maybe they're being informed about this. And so reflecting on that, again, I had to make a decision, right? I really had to put things into perspective. And before I tell you the decision that I made, I want to say that, like, there was a lot of people that I love. So I'm not anti-Islam. I'm not anti-Muslim. Like, I was in a relationship with a Syrian man and loved him so much, and still do care about him. I had a connection with a Palestinian man who I still do care about. Like, there's no one that could tell me that I could hate this person. You know, we didn't agree on some things, and that's just how life is. You're not going to agree on everything, right? But do I hate him? The answer is no. And I care deeply about that person. Still do care deeply about that person. And my research that I didn't have that person in mind. It didn't even really have the Syrian guy that I dated in mind. It had none of these people in mind. It was a reflection of what was taking place, indirect provision that was going unchecked with nobody saying anything about it. And so reflecting on that and how I was being ostracized, how I tried to build community, how people weren't giving me a chance, how people weren't actually sitting down and talking to me without actually using it as an opportunity to advance themselves, using it as an opportunity to get an incentive for a toxic authority figure that's sitting at the top, using it as an opportunity to victimize me further. Reflecting on this issue even more. But before I tell you the decision I made, I would also want to say that I met a woman who claimed to be from the United States. And she looked to be as if she is from, like, Pakistan or the Middle East somewhere. I think she said that she had, like, Saudi Arabian origins. So I think she's from Saudi Arabia. I think I remember her saying that. But she was alleging that she was from the United States. And so we started to talk and we started to have a conversation with each other, right? And then one day she was, I guess she had came across the video where I was talking about my relationship and indirect provision and how, like, that impacted me. And she was not really sensitive about that. She was like, well, why did you choose to say the person's name that you were in a relationship with, but you didn't choose to say the American man's name? That, you know, she was just, instead of understanding what had occurred and what had taken place, like, she was really being very judgmental, and it wasn't coming from a good place. And so after that conversation, of course, like, I tried to really stay clear of this woman. So taking all that into consideration, and then thinking about how the Jewish community has been nothing but respectful to me. And I'll give you an example. So I was in Pennsylvania, and I believe that the city that I was in was Ballackinwood. And if you are not aware of the city, I believe, like, this is a city where it is predominantly Jewish city, I think. And I was in that city, and I had to go to the store. And the store was like so far away. And so I came to this house, and there was this older Jewish lady that was outside. I think she was like 80 years old. And she was outside, and I think she was doing yard work. And I was like asking her where this store was. And she was telling me that the store was very far, and that like it would probably take me forever to get there, which wasn't really, it wouldn't take me forever, but she just, I think that she was trying to make it easy for me. And she was like, hold on, let me get my keys, and, I'll drive you there. And so she got her keys, and she actually drove me to the store by herself. This 80-year-old Jewish woman didn't judge me, didn't say like this person could steal from me, didn't think of me as a person who could hurt her or harm her. She did a nice thing, and she was like, oh, I want to do my Jewish deed. And she actually drove me to the store. That was like the nicest thing that someone has done for me. I'm not saying that like people haven't done nice things for me, but like I still remember that, and that's something that doesn't escape my memory. It's like little acts of kindness like that really mean so much. And when I was in Austin, Texas, there was a group that I was part of, Mayor Adler's task force, and there was a Jewish couple that was part of that group, and they told me that they were going to actually, we were talking about, racism in the city, and some of those issues were about anti-Black racism. And they were like, we're going to kind of like sit back and let you guys talk about this, and give you the floor, and let you give your voice on this. And I thought that was like a very respectful thing. And so, and taking into consideration that I feel like Jewish people and African Americans, we have a shared history of persecution. The Jewish people went through a horrific Holocaust, and Black Americans went through the transatlantic slave trade. I'm a descendant of slaves, and so I understand that history of persecution. Jewish people, whenever there is Nazism that is happening, there's two groups that they are always going after, and they're always going after Jewish people and Black people. Our two groups are the groups that are always coming up. And so reflecting on this really deeply, it only made sense to me to stand in solidarity with Israel. My standing in solidarity with Israel doesn't mean that I'm standing in solidarity with war, because I am anti-war, I'm against war, but I'm standing in solidarity with Israel that anti-Semitism is wrong. I'm standing in solidarity with Israel that the harm, the carnage on Israel that has taken place on October 7th is wrong. And so I've been paying a lot of attention to the UN Security Council meetings. And as I was paying attention to these meetings, what I saw was that when Israel would really decide to, engage in ceasefire talks and really consider them, then you had Hamas, you had the Houthis, you had Hezbollah, you had these three groups that were, still firing across the sky and not putting down their arms. Additionally, I watched the UN Security Council this morning, and that ceasefire was vetoed because there's still 7 Americans in Gaza that is being held hostage. And realistically, you can't expect the United States to you can't expect for the United States to enter a ceasefire deal if you are not releasing the hostages. Holding on to hostages is saying that you don't want a ceasefire. And so, when I reflect on things like that, when I really contemplate on that, it became very clear to me that I needed to stand in solidarity with Israel. Now, I know that that is not a popular position to take. I know that a lot of people are going to be angry with me. I'm probably going to be persecuted even more for doing that. But, I have to go with my heart. And my heart is telling me that the Jewish people have always treated me with the utmost respect and have always, I feel they've always, I haven't ran into any problems with the Jewish community. And so you don't create a problem that's not there. You don't create a problem that's not there. And so I'm not going to go against a community that is actually tried to help me out of my victimization, that has tried to help me out of my persecution. And so there's something that's circulating that Israel is far right. And I just don't believe that. Like, for example, Israel is a democracy in the Middle East, and LGBTQ rights, which are important to me, are being protected there. And while it is true that some argue that, there's still a long way to go. Yes, I do understand that, but we have to really take into consideration that in other Middle Eastern countries, there aren't any rights for the LGBTQ. There aren't any rights for the LGBTQ in Palestine. And taking that into consideration, it became clear to me that, again, who I needed to support in this conflict is Israel. To reiterate, this is not supporting the war. This is not supporting the carnage on the children, the women who are losing their lives. I am devastated, and this isn't just talk. I've written extensively on this humanitarian crisis. I disagree with it. I don't think that people should be losing their lives. I want this war to end. I want there to be a ceasefire. But I have seen over the years, just being in Europe, that there's a lot of manipulation, and there is, again, when I did my research, a lot of these issues I didn't know about. No one put me up to my research. No one said, Kiana, you should do this, go in to investigate this. Or no, we need to remember that when I did my research, it was because there was something that was happening in direct provision. And that was going unaddressed for a long period of time. No one spoke out about it. No one said anything about it. And because of that, I wanted to learn more about why this was happening. And so I decided, let me look into this. I had a lot of time in my university, and, as a writer, I'm a writer. That's just something that, it helps me to process emotions. It was something that helped me learn about my community and what I was going through, and helped me to process my emotions. But instead of actually looking at that as, okay, let's reflect on this piece. What happened was they used my piece, and I guess right now they're using it as if like they created it. And they're using it to re-victimize me. So basically they're using it to say, look at what she did, and ain't this so bad, and you should hate her, you should go against her, you should dislike her, do this to her. Like, you see everything she's talking about in here, do it to her, you know? And that's just really bullying behavior. It's not adult behavior. It's not good behavior. It's not the behavior of somebody who wants peace. It's not the behavior of a person who wants community. It's actually the behavior of somebody who likes division, who likes to see communities separated. It's the behavior of somebody who doesn't know a lot about culture. And again, I'm not a person that I can say that I'm well versed on all cultures. It's the reason why I did the piece, because there was a kind of behavior that was present in direct provision that I wanted to try and understand. I wanted to know more about. And to me, it looked exactly like morality policing. When you tell a woman that she needs to be dressed in hijab when she doesn't have one on, and you tell that to a woman that is in a European country that does not have Sharia law, that is morality policing. And I'm being beat up every day because I understand that, and people are beating me up, not physically, but you know, emotionally, because that's the perspective that I have. Instead of sitting down, and before I end this video, what I would want to say is this. I think now is the time. Again, there are a lot of groups that are calling for a ceasefire in Belfast, a lot of groups that are calling for a ceasefire in the Republic of Ireland, and they're calling for a ceasefire to the conflict in Gaza. Before you can call for a ceasefire, you need to make sure that that ceasefire is being reflected in the entire. Yes, I do think that there should be a ceasefire, but what also needs to happen is that we need to really reflect on how we're treating people. So if you are continuously fighting with me or fighting with somebody, and you're keeping that conflict going, we really need to ask ourselves, like, do we authentically want a ceasefire? And so when I say that, I mean that, like, theoretically, and just as an example, an analogy. So if you're fighting with a person and you're not wanting to actually really sit down and have a serious discussion, or a very respectful discussion, you know, you're not wanting that, like, is that indicative that you truly don't want the hostilities to end? So I will end this video by saying that conflict is never okay. Humanitarian crisis is something that happens, and we must always consider the rights of the child and what the children are going through. We must really keep in mind that these are human beings. And keeping in mind that these are human beings, that everybody has a right to life, this should be encouragement on all sides for people to put down their weapons and to engage in peace talks. I would also encourage, outside of the humanitarian conflict in Gaza, or the humanitarian conflict that is happening between Russia and Ukraine, in our own communities, when we are having conflict with our cohorts, or we're having conflict with people in the community, people that we have disagreements with, I would ask that we consider sitting down and having discussions, sitting down and having a conversation, not jumping to conclusions about the person. And again, that's what I did, is I sat down with a person who was pro-Palestinian, didn't judge them. And to tell you the truth, that person in my class is somebody that I probably like the most out of all of my cohorts. There's 2 people and maybe 3 people in my class that I really like a lot. Like I really, really like them a lot. And she's one of them. So I will say that these discussions are necessary. They're necessary to have. And so I would urge any community that has a disagreement with me for us to sit down and talk about it. I think now is the time. This is an act of transitional justice on both sides. I think it's something that we both need. So if there is an opportunity, my door is open. I'm willing to sit down and have this discussion. And I hope you are too. I think it's time that we talked about it. So this video has gone on long enough. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It's @RealKiana_Canada. That's @RealKiana_Canada. You can also follow me on my Facebook channel. It's or account. It's linked in this channel in the description. And you can also follow me on Medium. That's where I post a lot of my written content. Like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and we will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.